Just don't throw the third switch. Young Frankenstein reference.
Okay, we are live.
Some of us saw that movie when it came out.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It is Wednesday, September 7th, 2022. This is the weekly public meeting, business meeting for the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners, being conducted in person here at the Lincoln County Courthouse in Newport, and also streaming live, excuse me, through our Zoom channel. First agenda item is call to order. All three commissioners are present. That constitutes a quorum. Now we get into employee recognition, and we have three employees who are celebrating 5 years of service with the county. Gina Golden Williford. Is Gina here today?
Get that to her.
Christopher Tugwell, 5 years with the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office.
He's here, but not here in the room.
Oh, okay.
I'm giving this to one of you. And then you can take that. Thank you. Yes.
Jennifer Beckner, 5 years with Health and Human
I think
Services.
it's 20. Their certificates. Those are 20.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking, because I know Jennifer's been with the county. I mean, she was the assistant at Health and Human Services. So,
Yeah, it says 20 years.
okay, that seems more like it.
Give it to Jane. Take it. Okay.
All right, well, salute to all these folks.
Jane can probably take Gina's because Gina's HHS too.
Oh, okay.
Right, now
Jane.
it is time for introduction of new hires, and our Human Resources Director, David Collier, is here to introduce those folks. We have a lot of them, so welcome one and all.
We do. Thank you, Chair Hall. Again, for the record, I'm David Collier, Human Resources Director for Lincoln County. We have 14 new employees on here. How about if I introduce, I believe there's 4 that aren't with us on our tour that we just completed.
Mhm.
And then I'll have the others come up and introduce themselves. Is that all right?
That
with you?
is fine.
All right.
Sounds good.
So not with us, Carrie Figueroa Nathers. I don't know how to say her last name, I'm sorry. She's a family nurse practitioner with Health and Human Services. Kathleen Allison Myers, crime victim advocate with the District Attorney's Office. Mackenzie Collins DeBoer, disease intervention specialist, Health and Human Services. And Tina McAllister, electronic health records site specialist with Health and Human Services. The other 10 are with us, and I will have them. Would you like them to come forward and stand up?
Yes, please.
So I'll just have you come.
So we can get a group photo.
Maybe go front row, next row. And say your name and what.
Good morning. John Rodriguez. I'm the new building official for the County Community Development.
Welcome. Oh, would you stay up there, please? We're going to take a group photo.
You have to stand
After
awkwardly.
everybody's, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I'm Amber Rose DeLay. I am
Hey.
a new counselor at the Lease Clinic and Lowell.
Hey,
My name is Josh Bibby, Community Services Deputy at the Sheriff's Office.
Everyone, my name is Marta Barro. I'm with the department.
welcome.
Don't like standing
Yeah. But it's a friendly crowd. I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm Lindsay Anderson. I'm a new case manager for the OVAC program for HHS.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Christian Bailey and I'm the inspection.
Assessment specialist. Hi, everyone. My name is Regina Howard. I'm the new victims advocate and I work at the.
Okay.
morning. My name is James Buchanan. I'm with the Juvenile Department Youth Care Specialist.
Do people often ask you if you're related to the 15th president of the same name? Are you?
They also tell me that he was a very good president.
Is he a distant relative or an ancestor? As far as you know. Okay,
My name is Ankush Sachdeva. I'm a sports services specialist for the World American.
thank you.
And I believe that is.
Okay, Casey?
Photo, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
squeeze
let's
it.
get the commissioners.
Actually,
We'll probably need a couple rows, huh?
yeah.
Yeah. Get everybody.
Last photo.
Yeah.
There you go. I'll space your hands. Okay, there we go. See all these faces. Okay, thank you so much. All right, everyone ready? It looks great. 3, 2, 1. One more. 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
And don't be strangers, everyone. We'll see you for your 5-year pin, but you're always welcome before that to drop in and see what we're up to. We have a couple of proclamations now, and I would invite our presenter to come forward for the National Suicide Prevention Month proclamation, and Commissioner Jacobson is going to read that one.
Yay, and the audience left right before I have to read it, so. All right, 2022 Suicide Prevention Month proclamation, whereas September 2022 is National Suicide Prevention Month, when millions of people around the world join their voices to share a message of hope and healing. And whereas in these challenging times, messages of hope and healing are more needed than ever. And whereas every day in Lincoln County, people enter treatment into behavioral health services and community supports and begin the road to wellness. And whereas resiliency begins early in life within families, daycares, and schools, and can be strengthened and reinforced throughout the lifespan. And whereas wellness encompasses the whole individual, including mind, body, spirit, and community. And whereas the benefits of preventing and overcoming mental health challenges, suicide attempts, and loss, and substance abuse are significant and valuable to individuals, families, and our community at large. And whereas it is essential that we educate residents about suicide, mental health, and substance abuse problems and the ways they affect all people in the community. And whereas we must encourage relatives, friends, coworkers, and providers to recognize the signs of a problem and guide those in need to appropriate services and supports. And whereas Suicide Prevention Month inspires millions of Americans to raise awareness, build resiliency, and find hope. Now, therefore, the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners proclaimed the month of September 2022 as Suicide Prevention Month.
And if you'd introduce yourselves, please, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Hurd with Lincoln County Public Health Promotion.
And I'm Linda Gray. I'm the program manager for the Child and Family Services with Behavioral Health.
Thank you for having us here today. We have, of course, we're always busy in providing information and care to our community. I know Linda will talk about some of the services that we offer. I want to just share a little bit about how we've been doing. So across the state of Oregon, over the past 10 or 15 years, we've seen increases in suicides and suicide attempts. And over the past, now I have to do math, 5 years since 2019. No, that's not that long, 3 years. If we watch the national news, we would anticipate that suicides have skyrocketed in the state of Oregon. We actually have seen through the surveillance data that has not been the case in Oregon. It's been, there's peaks and valleys. And we've seen that the numbers have remained relatively consistent. for all age categories and genders. This year, we've seen a little bit of an increase across the state. I don't have local numbers for this year for Lincoln County. With our youth, at the beginning of the year, there was an increase, and then the numbers started to go down in the summer, which typically happen each year. So summer is a stress relief for our youth. So school year is really important that we're watching out for our kids, learning those signs and symptoms. We did bring just a few materials that are on the table for folks. There is a suicide prevention lifeline, which is just a little plum card with some things to look for. And then, of course, a number to call. Locally, we have our crisis line. There's a magnet. There's a card with English and Spanish. Our crisis line is, our crisis team is fully staffed and operational. They are available to assist in crisis. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, these cards were printed prior to this summer when they instituted a simple 988 number. So there are no wrong ways into getting into crisis services. We can call our local number, but you might be caring for somebody who is not in Lincoln County, who's across the country or in another city, and simply calling 988 is going to help get you connected and help get them connected with services and support in the area that they're at.
Okay, so I want to start off by saying very proudly that we have all 4 of our school-based health clinics fully staffed with mental health people this year. It has been a struggle since COVID, and so we're happy. It's been hard work, but we've got people there. And so we're hoping that that is a mitigating factor in helping to intervene with any kind of suicidal ideation or crisis that might happen in that respect. And as Sarah said, Oregon had a 14% decrease in suicide rates, but we still remain the highest in the nation, one of the highest, not the highest, but one of the highest in the nation. So, you know, keeping that in mind, I'd just like to talk for a minute about the services that we offer outside of our intervention services in the county. So we work in partnership with Oregon Family Support Network, and they provide classes in what they call ASSIST, and that is Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training. And they and Health Promotion also provide training in QPR, which is question, persuade, and respond. We also work in partnership with the high school on their suicide protocol. And so we get involved with that, not only on the crisis team level, but also, you know, as our mental health clinicians in the school. The last one I want to talk about is what we call postvention. And the child and family team proudly works with the state, and we've had intensive training, and we try to provide this community-wide. So it's not only for youth, but it is for our adults in the community too that may have had a suicide. So, and what the idea is that when a person dies by suicide, many others are affected. One study estimated that 115 people are exposed to each suicide, with 1 in 5 reporting that this experience had a devastating impact or caused a major life disruption. Everyone grieves differently. Some people experience short-term, others long-term responses. Exposure to suicide can lead to an array of negative outcomes, including mental health issues, social isolation, and be at risk for suicide themselves. So the definition of postvention is an organized response in the aftermath of a suicide to accomplish one or more of the following. And that's to facilitate the healing of individuals from grief and distress of suicide loss, to mitigate other negative effects of exposure to suicide, and to prevent, I think this is the most important one for us anyway, to prevent suicide among people who are at high risk after exposure to suicide. Because we know that it can be a copycat kind of effect. So I just want you to know that's there. And if any community members would like to have us come visit them and talk about our training and stuff, we're happy to do that. I also want to mention not only the youth line, but the Trevor Project. And I'm going to leave this on the back table also. And the Trevor Project is a national organization providing crisis intervention and suicide prevention services to LGBTQ young people ages 13 to 24.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments from my fellow commissioners?
I have a question. So kind of the information you just provided, which I had never heard before, that said, you know, exposure to suicide creates a higher risk for suicide in those that were exposed. Is that just for youth or is that for adults as well?
I believe that's for adults as well. Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hunt?
Talk a little bit about the stigma of seeking help. I think that, you know, a lot of people are hesitant to seek help because of the stigma. What can parents or friends, coworkers do to help overcome that fear?
Doug, that's a great point. People who are experiencing emotional pain tend to withdraw and not share it in the same way that you would if you had a physical pain. We talk about physical pain. And when we talk about pain, there is a release of that pain. And individuals may have a fear of being judged or have a fear of abandonment around that pain, that psychological pain that they're having. So one of the greatest things that we can do is understand that suicide occurs in a context. What's happening in their life? What are they communicating verbally? What are they communicating through their behaviors? What is the situation in life? And when we are in doubt at all about somebody's suicidality or what's going on in their life, to simply talk to them. Sometimes it's not about suicide. Sometimes people are stressed to the breaking point and they might need other help. And they might be thinking about it and think that they're alone, in which case we have the opportunity to tell them that we care, that they're not alone, that we want them to live, and then we can help connect them with the right resources. Because we know that a suicide attempt puts somebody at a greater risk of a future suicide attempt if they don't get the help that they need. So it's up to all of us to have those conversations and to seek help together so that we can help reduce that risk. Because if they get the help that they need, they're likely not going to be suicidal again.
Well, and I'd just like to add really quick that if you look at our military, you know, people going into the military, if they have a mental health diagnosis, oftentimes they try to hide that. It's a stigma, and you know, and it can actually keep them out of the military. That's a small example, and I think it's important that we understand the education and outreach. And so talking more and more about these community services and people participating and, you know, having that education and feeling, you know, more open to receiving services when they need them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good.
A statistic that surprised me many years ago when I heard it at a presentation, it was mainly focusing on mental health needs of veterans, and people always associate PTSD with combat. And I know certainly there's a linkage there, but this presenter said 3 out of 4 people going into the military already have significant trauma. So it's a complicated problem. I appreciate this informative presentation and your ongoing good work in this area.
Thank you.
So I believe we're ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we proclaim the month of September 2022 as Suicide Prevention Month.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And we'll roll right into our second proclamation, which I will read for Recovery Month. Whereas behavioral health is an essential part of health and one's overall wellness, and whereas prevention of mental and substance use disorders works, treatment is effective, and people recover in our area and around the nation. And whereas preventing and overcoming mental and substance use disorders is essential to achieving healthy lifestyles, both physically and emotionally. And whereas we must encourage relatives and friends of people with mental and/or substance use disorders to implement preventive measures, recognize the signs of a problem, and guide those in need to appropriate treatment and recovery support services. And whereas to help more people achieve and sustain long-term recovery and learn how recovery positively benefits well-being, the prevention coalitions of Lincoln County, PADA, and Cedar, together with the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians, Lincoln County Health and Human Services, Celebrate Recovery, the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, Reconnections, Phoenix Wellness Center, and many local treatment and recovery support organizations are sponsoring events to celebrate recovery during the 32nd annual National Recovery Month, including virtual trainings and webinars, a large social media campaign using hashtag Lincoln Recovers, multiple events throughout Lincoln County, including Light of Hope Saturday, September 10th in Toledo, Hands Across the Bridge event on Saturday, September 17th at 11:30 in Waldport, followed by a celebration at the Waldport Community Center. South County RX Drug Take-Back Day, September 17th from 10 to 2. South County residents can dispose of unused or expired medication for safe disposal at the Lincoln County Sheriff's Substation at Waldport City Hall. Now, therefore, we, the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim September 2022 as National Recovery Month in Lincoln County and encourage citizens to celebrate recovery, spread the word, and support these community efforts. And the floor is yours once again. If you'd both introduce yourselves for the record. And
Thank you. Sarah Hurd, Lincoln County Public Health Promotion. I'm representing Health Promotion today.
And I'm Rick Booth, and I am a chaplain with Lincoln County Sheriff, but I have been with the recovery program for the last 8 years, even though we didn't get to do it for 2 years. And I have a new person taking the lead, so I'm going to let her be the lead. But I thank you for letting me be here.
Okay. We're excited this year that Hands Across the Bridge is happening in Portland. Boy, there was a lot of effort and work into making that happen last year, and I believe it would be a thank you to the Delta variant that put a little stick in the mud. So we're very thankful to bring this back. And Rick can talk more about the history and how long it's been going on. So that will occur on, as you read in the proclamation, on Saturday, the 17th in Waldport. The goal is to get enough people to reach hands across the entire Alsea Bay. So that would be amazing when we make that happen. We'll celebrate that.
We've never made it halfway. So we're hoping for a day like today, the weather's nice. But it's a great event. Technically, this would have been the 13th annual, but we've missed 2 years. So I'm going to say it's the 13th annual because my number, they started in 2002, I believe, or 2001. I can't remember which one. It's been in Waldport since 2014. And for all those that don't realize why it's Waldport, it used to be in Newport. The bridge either got smaller or there were more people, became a safety issue, and we moved it down to Waldport where we have a little bigger bridge. We've moved to the community center. We don't have the literacy center at this time, so it'll be at the community center. Hopefully good weather, so we'll be outside. Confederate Tribe is involved with us, as mentioned. We have all of our agents and partnerships that are working. The Take Back is happening. from 10 to 2 at the substation. And we hope that people come in and visit with them. It's just a good event all the way around. You talked about Lights of Hope. That is this Saturday at the waterfront in Toledo. And that's a major event and that people come together that have been in addiction or up to suicide or whatever they've been involved with. I get an opportunity to speak at that event. For my journey, this is my 18th year of being in recovery. I celebrate on the 12th of clean and sober, which is a great thing for my family. And then Sarah has one other event that we just added, and I think it's exciting for North County.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interest in North County to do an in-person event and, make it accessible for residents in Lincoln City area and Otis. And so this year, it'll start out relatively small. The Celebrate Recovery group in Lincoln City will be hosting on the 5th Friday, which is
Should be the 30th.
the 30th.
I think it's the 30th.
A movie night at the Foursquare Church, and have invited other recovery community partners to come join. And we're having conversations about next year for 2023, how to host a larger event, something outdoor potentially. So we're looking at some different locations so we can also have a large North County event like South County and East County and Toledo. And then the webinars, there are things that are already available through SAMHSA that's publicly available. So we have those listed on our website for people who are not able to attend an event, but still would like some information or to learn from home. I know Samaritan Health Center has already done some tabling events at the hospitals. So there's little things that happen throughout the community. And this year we're kind of coming back into those in-person events, which is getting good traction, and people are excited about it. They want to see each other. They want to tell their story and talk to each other and really support the recovery community.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
I do have a
Commissioners?
question. So the Lights of Hope, Saturday, September 10th in Toledo, I think you said it was at the waterfront park, but what time is that?
I believe it starts at 5. I know there's anytime recovery happens, there's always food. So I know that it starts at 5. I talked to Susie Duncan, which is their coordinator, and I don't know what time we start talking, but I know that probably from 5 to 6 is probably a no host eat time thing. And I think they start at 6 and they go try to get to dark because it's Lights of Hope. And if you're going to light candles, you want to see that presentation. So 5 o'clock is, I believe, the start.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hunt, anything?
Well, I would ask the same question. I don't think it's as big a factor, but is there a stigma that's a factor as far as entering recovery, being in recovery?
There's always the big.
How do you address that? Excuse me.
Well, the first stigma that I always find with a person coming to recovery is they don't have a problem. We call that denial. That's the first step of not celebrate recovery for a person in recovery. I gave my testimony last night, and the first thing I told everybody that was in the audience is I drank for 32 years and I didn't have any problem doing it. I enjoyed doing it. The problem is I affected a family for 32 years. And the stigma is it's the denial factor. They don't have a problem and they don't know who they're affecting until they don't have a family. They don't, if the addiction takes over their ability to be in a community, they're not part of that. They're not in the community, they're in their community. And their community may not be a safe place for them. Children are always affected. In the program that I'm in, we have pre-recovery. And pre-recovery is for the children going through the same thing that I would have gone through. There is a stigma that we cannot change. I believe anybody can change. You just have to be with the right community to change. And that's what's nice about being in person. We've done recovery the 2 years with COVID, and you guys have done it on this TV. It's not the same as sitting in front of you and telling you a story. Zoom works, but it doesn't work. So There's a stigma.
Well, Rick, you've heard me say this. My last drink was on December 7th, 1987.
There you go.
So I'll be coming up on 35 years. I was fortunate. I
Congratulations.
took a cab home one night, but left our 7-year-old son at Taekwondo and got up in the morning and said that maybe I ought to do things a little differently. My son is now 42. He's the only one that remembers me drinking.
Mhm.
Our other daughter was young, but doesn't remember that. And the youngest daughter has never seen me ever take a drink. So it can be done, as you said. For me, unfortunately, it was fairly easy. I woke up and said, I got to do things differently.
Exactly with mine. Super, had football the night before, saw the last game, woke up the next morning, haven't done it since. But it takes a community. And that's what the recovery month takes, is it takes.
And those resources are there for people that need them and can use them.
Yep.
Very good.
Thank you for letting us come.
You
Thank
bet.
you.
Is someone ready to make a motion, please?
I'll move that the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners proclaims September 2022 as National Recovery Month in Lincoln County.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Would all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous, of course. And again, thanks for a great presentation. And it's exciting to see all these in-person activities returning. Thanks.
Thanks.
Next up, we have the consent calendar, routine items, and items that have been discussed at previous meetings. And I always ask if commissioners wish to remove or highlight items. And I imagine Commissioner Jacobson, you might like to say something about item H2.
I do. So item H2 is funding that was passed for Lincoln County 18 months ago for fire recovery work, for basically continuing our septic repair and replacement program. That money was approved by the legislature through the Christmas tree package. Went to get the contract and they said there was a language problem in the bill. We had to go back and rip it apart in the next session. So long story short, I'm super happy that we get to finally approve this today. And we still have to send this after we approve it back to the state and then get the finalized contract back from them. But I'm hoping that we still will at least have a little bit of time of a weather window to do some septic repairs before the rains set in. So happy about that. The other thing I just wanted to mention on H1, this is a follow-up from a meeting, I think 2 weeks ago, something like that. And I just want to point out, I think this, I think the wording on this is a little off because it makes it sound like we're financing the repair and we're not. We're simply just allowing the state to use property that we own to do the repair. So this is not our repair project. We are just allowing a lease or use of our space for them to do the landslide repair. I just thought that wasn't quite stated right.
Thank you for the clarification and thank you for your hard work and persistence on that $2.5 million septic grant.
Absolutely. Good work.
Commissioner Hunt, anything on the consent calendar?
No, I think it's just nice to see some dollars coming to our area that are going to address some critical needs.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's approved. Now we move on to our one decision and action item, which is purchase and installation of Johnson Controls heating coil replacement with air handler services for the jail. And this is something we discussed, I believe, a couple of weeks ago at our Board of Commissioners meeting. And gentlemen, if you'd all introduce yourselves for the record and take things away, please.
Jerry Gerbich, Assistant County Counsel.
Jack Whaley, Facilities Manager.
Roy Keenan, Lincoln County Public Works Director. You're right. A couple weeks ago, we brought to you an issue that we have with the heating system with the jail.
You put that so nicely, right?
It's an issue that we'd like to fix before the colds of winter set in. Jack Whaley, our facilities maintenance manager, has made all the arrangements with this firm to provide the preheating coils that is necessary for this heating system to function. What they have requested is a 50% deposit. These coils basically have not been built yet. So they're asking for a 50% deposit on the total so they can start construction of these coils. That 50% is for 2 coils at $9,740.50 for a grand total of $19,481. Don't know, basically it would be half up front, half at the completion. In order to do our best to save the county as much money as possible, Jack Whaley has basically said that his crew will be doing the install. So it will be basically all installed with our own people. So that'll cut out a significant cost. Jack, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, just to, if we could expedite this, that would be very grateful.
Jerry, do you have anything to add?
No, I've worked with Jack and Roy on this, and I think it's all in order. I'd ask the board to approve this. And I would commend actually Jack and his staff and Roy for stepping forward to do the work. It's going to save the county a lot.
Much appreciated. And again, for people maybe who didn't hear, or just to refresh the discussion from 2 weeks ago, that we've gone through the necessary legal steps to not put this out to bid, but do a direct contract, because this is the firm that built the original coils, and just in terms of efficiency and hopefully getting the new coils in place before the cold weather season starts, all of those things kind of point us in the direction of this approach. Am I correct?
You're correct, Chair. It's really what you did is you allowed this to be declared an emergency, which I think is appropriate when you have equipment that goes out. Take care of it. And what's at stake is the health of our adults in custody, as well as our staff. Sheriff is here with his people. Their health is in jeopardy, and it takes time. If we were to go through formal process, it takes time, and we don't really have a lot of time. We wanted to do this directly and get the repairs done.
Okay. Questions, comments from my fellow commissioners?
Oh, I have a question and a comment. And I will note that the agendas now start pointing out fiscal costs or impacts. And this cost is roughly $19,400. Is that general fund money, or where's the money? Which fund is paying for it?
That will come out of Jack Whaley's facilities maintenance budget line. So yes, it will come out of Jack.
Equipment repair.
Second of all, I have a lot of confidence in your people, and I say that because I'm one of those guys that measures twice, cuts once, still does it wrong. But no, I have a great deal of confidence in the staff. I know they'll do good work, and appreciate the efforts to save taxpayers money.
That is appreciated. Thank you.
Commissioner Jacobson, anything?
No
Okay.
questions.
Then I would think we're at the time when I could entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the purchase and installation of Johnson Controls heating coil replacement with air handler services for the jail at a cost of $19,481.
And I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Would all in favor please say aye?
Aye.
Aye. It's approved. So gentlemen, get to work. Thank you.
And I just want to say, although I think he has to present one more item, but this is Council Urbage's last Board of Commissioners meeting before he retires. So we're happy to have you for one more meeting, Jerry.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure working here. Really has.
I'll second that. Commissioner Jacobson took the words literally out of my mouth. Like to say, Jerry, really appreciate your dedication to the people of the county. Your attention to detail and sound legal advice that you provided us. And I hope your dahlias grow even better with the additional attention they'll receive in your retirement.
Thank you very much.
And Jerry, I can't let this occasion pass without also thanking you for your good, hard professional work for the people of the county. I believe when you retire at the end of this week, you'll have 6 years in service with us, but before that, many decades in public service work elsewhere in Oregon. So here's thanks for a great career and, you know, best wishes for the next chapter of your life.
And none of you mentioned, we will also miss the phenomenal dad jokes.
Oh, yeah.
That come out of Jerry's mouth. So you have to email us every once in a while so I can get a dose of a good dad joke.
Yes, and every Monday morning at the staff meeting when, you know, it's Monday morning. Yeah, the weekend's over and it's, oh, well, to another week. And Jerry would always have a pile of Far Side or similar cartoons to pass around to lighten the mood a bit. So you've been a great part of the team, Jerry.
Thank
You'll
you.
be missed. Thank
Yes, you will. Right, we are now on to our first discussion and information item, which is World Mark Riprap Revetment Encroachment. Say that fast 3 times in Gleneden Beach. And this will be presented by Mr. Kenyon.
Good morning, commissioners. There again, I am Roy Kenyon. I'm getting all choked up because Jerry's. I'm
Not buying it.
Public Works Director for Lincoln County. And what I bring to you today by the request of William Rasmussen, who is representing World Mark Resort up in Gleneden Beach, is basically a request for the board to permit riprap revetment, which is nothing more than just a riprap wall, but it's actually it's proposed to encroach on a public road right of way that is adjacent to the north side of the World Mark property. It's actually proposed, it actually crosses the 30-foot right of way and actually ties into a riprap revetment that is on the property immediately north of that 30-foot right of way. So it closes all that in. There is a declaration that Council Herbridge and I have worked with Mr. Rasmussen on for several months, basically. It is very, very similar to the last one of these that we did in early this year, February, March. There was a similar request from 2 property owners who own property on either side of a very narrow public right of way access. And we worked on that declaration with them. We used that as basically boilerplate for this next one. Now, the only difference really is that the last one, I think, was a 5-foot wide access, and this one's actually 30-foot wide. What's the same about it is that currently there really doesn't seem to be any public use of these accesses for this 30-foot right of way that's just north of the World Mark. I actually went up there and looked to see if you could physically access the beach on this 30-foot right of way. The only way you can is to actually walk on private property next to this property immediately north, and then cut through a little trail in the trees to put you kind of out in some riprap in onto the beach. As far as I can see, the main beach access is actually 500 feet north of this. And it's actually an improved beach access that emergency vehicles actually use from time to time to access on the beach. Now, World Mark does have a staircase that actually leads the World Mark property and actually accesses or exits onto this right of way, and as part of this riprap revetment. I believe their attempt is to save this staircase or rebuild it in its place. So that says the declarant, who is Worldmark, obtain an exception to Oregon statewide planning goal 18, which was granted by the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners on September 15th, 2021. So this has been kind of in the works for at least a year. I'm sure it actually come up long before you guys ever got that far with it. Oregon Parks and Recreation Department and GRI, who is a certified engineering geologist in Oregon, has said that construction of the revetment must extend beyond the property and onto an adjacent parcel of property, namely the 30-foot easement described in recital B above. And the reason for that is if you dead end the riprap wall, the waves and the storm surge tends to eat around the backside of it. And so then it starts eating itself out from behind and it's no longer effective. There, as part of this is the declaration. There's also an Oregon Parks and Recreation Department Ocean Shores permit application. Now in the past, and it's the same way on this one, Lincoln County is named as the property owner of this public easement. Now that's not exactly true. It's a public access, but Lincoln County basically is the overseer of that. And in the application, I'm actually named as Public Works Director as the signer for that property. And so not only am I asking for permission for Worldmark and Mr. Rasmussen for your signature on the declaration, but I'm also asking if you choose to approve that. I'm also asking the permission to sign for the county as a county's representative on the Ocean Shores permit. And Casey has brought up multiple. There's the map of the area. Can you scroll up just a hair? The other way, the other up. There you go. Okay, there's Worldmark at the very bottom there. Just north of Worldmark, you can see where that 30-foot wide public access reaches the beach. If you look close enough, you can see where the staircase actually leaves the Worldmark property and exits onto that public right of way. In that house that's immediately to the north, that is the one that I actually got permission from somebody standing in the driveway to actually trespass. And I walked down along the side of that house. And down there very close to where that staircase reaches the 30-foot easement is where this trail kind of between a couple trees and squirts out there into that right of way. And I mean, it didn't look like it was very well used. It may be only used by the people who own that property. And those property owners are named as part of this permit application. So they're very aware of what's going on. They're actually partaking in the permit process. To the north, 500 feet is the public beach access that I was saying I think the community uses. Because I can't find any real evidence that that 30-foot wide access at the south end is used any amount. So any questions?
Commissioners, any questions at this point?
Well, so I believe you stated this, but I think it's important to note that there apparently is access through that point that's just north of Worldmark. But in order to access what appears to be a trail, you'd have to trespass on private property.
That is correct.
Okay, so
yeah, because my desire was to go up there and actually look to see if somebody had been utilizing that 30-foot easement to actually access the beach from the north side.
Right.
And I could not find anything. It's actually a fairly steep draw that's completely totally vegetated. But I assumed that maybe those people that owned in that property there, I mean, if I lived right that close, I'd have some kind of a little wiggle trail someplace to get to the beach. And so there was a gentleman standing in the driveway. I asked for permission to walk along the house. And I walked down just about to the southwest corner of that house is where was a gap in the brush. And it does come out down on the beach. It's not, well, I made it, but you know, I mean, it's not, it's by no stretch an improved access.
I'm not gonna go there. Made it. But I will, again, the property owner to the north is a part of this application.
They are.
And by being a part of the application, I assume they support it.
I would assume so, because they have to sign the application themselves.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
I don't have a question. And you had already stated this previously, Mr. Kenyon, but I just wanted to reemphasize the goal 18 exception was already given. So the permission to put riprap up has already been there and been made a year ago.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Commissioner, and in part, in your materials, you'll see a sign off, John O'Leary signed off. I think that was on the permit, that this is consistent with the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinances. So that's all squared away. And this is consistent with what you've done before. The parties were Grant and Tanabe. I think you remember that they also had a separate order regarding Go 18 and separate application. This declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions is something that would be required for the ocean shore alteration permit from OPRD to be issued. And I think that really Roy explained this all very well. The point is that this 30-foot easement is owned by the public. When there's such a thing owned by the public in unincorporated areas, the Board of Commissioners really is sort of the supervisor of them legally for purposes of these sorts of things. So I think that the permit would be signed off by Roy, and indeed the declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions, I think is a spot for the chair to sign off.
That's correct. Okay. I think all of my questions have been covered. So the request is to bring this back for decision and action next week, or would consent calendar be sufficient?
I'm fine either way.
Let's do decision.
Okay. Do we have a consensus to bring this back as a decision and action item next week?
Yeah, and if we could make a note on the agenda for next week that it's actually, I just want to make sure that it's two things we're giving permission for. The declaration and then the permission for Mr. Kenyon to sign as our county representative on the Ocean Shores permit. So.
Okay.
Just a note.
Sounds good.
Yes. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right. Next up, presentation from Sheriff Curtis Landers and others about a proposed intergovernmental agreement between the Lincoln County Sheriff and the City of Depot Bay. Welcome, Mayor.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for having us today, Commissioners.
Okay, if you'd all introduce yourselves for the record, please, even though we know you all.
Okay, again, Jerry Herridge, Assistant County Counsel working for Christian Yule.
Good morning, Commissioners. Curtis Landers, Lincoln County Sheriff.
And Kathy Short, Mayor, City of Depot Bay.
And first of all, this must be your last one for to be up here.
I think it is, yeah.
Thank you for saving me for the last. I really appreciate
We're
it.
getting our money's worth out of him today. Not that we didn't every day for the last 6 years,
That was like,
but
I'm gonna
Paid your
miss.
last respect.
I will, yes.
okay.
But I'm gonna miss you too, and all the sports talk that we have about the A's and others. So anyhow, I'll start us off today. Thank you. I want to provide you with some background on this agreement. Discussions began with the City of Depot Bay to contract for law enforcement services similar to what we do in the city of Walport. Basically over a year ago. At that point, the city council did not pass in 2021 to move forward with an agreement with us. And then earlier this year, around June, the city council discussed it again. And it was my understanding that several constituents came forward expressing concerns with public safety. And the city council agreed to move forward with contracting for law enforcement services 40 hours of patrol service, 1 FTE, and partial cost for support services with the sheriff's office. Depot Bay has the money dedicated to public safety to provide this service. On August 2nd, I met with City Council and presented a draft agreement very similar to the City of Walport to answer questions. It was approved by the City Council. Assistant County Council Jerry Herbridge assisted with updating the agreement for final approval by the city and me. This agreement is now before you for consideration. As I discussed with the city, this agreement is a little different because we do not plan on providing the intended service of 40 hours per week within the city of Depot Bay until on or about April 1st, 2023. The total cost for the first year is $176,555 and will be due on November 1st, 2022. This will allow us to hire and train an additional deputy and also purchase all of the necessary equipment, vehicle, computer, uniforms, radios, firearms, etc. There's no cost to the county's general fund to add a patrol deputy, and with the county's current 17.54% indirect cost allocation, an estimated $18,000 per year will transfer to the general fund for the indirect cost. An estimated annual cost is estimated at $174,833 in future years, and this is outlined in attachment A of the agreement. We're working toward a goal of April 1st, but will depend on training time for the deputy. This is due to our current staffing levels and making sure we have equipment and personnel in place to provide the additional services. To give you an update on our staffing, Lieutenant Bertner is doing an excellent job in recruiting, and his efforts help ease any concerns I have of increasing staffing by 1. Lieutenant Bertner has recruited some experienced officers from other agencies, which significantly reduce our training time. Some are from our local area. They already live here and know the area. We have one person who will be starting on Monday that's certified. Another certified person will be starting in 2 weeks from Monday. We have a few others in various stages of our hiring process. And Lieutenant Bertner has anticipated the additional Depot Bay position in this effort since we've been working with the city of Depot Bay for a few months. At this moment, we have 1 open position and applicants at the background step of the hiring process for that position. As far as our deputies in training, we have 4 at the academy currently. 1 graduates on Friday. The next one will graduate in October, the next one in November, and the final one in December. We also have 1 deputy leaving for the academy in October, and she will return from the academy in February. Given our current trend situation, we will have all of our positions filled and trained, including the Depot Bay position, by April 1st. Our outlook is brighter than it has been for years. This agreement is very important to providing public safety in the city of Depot Bay, and I appreciate a relationship with the city to provide enhanced services, and I look forward to working with them. It is also important for all of Lincoln County. As I mentioned in our recent reduction of services media release, without our multiple contracts, our patrol staffing would not have increased over the years. These contracts are vital to providing public safety, adequate public safety in our county. Mayor, if you have anything you want to add about this agreement?
Yes, thank you, Sheriff Landers, and thank you, Commissioners. As you know, the city of Depot Bay does not have a city tax base. And so it has been very difficult to find the funds, but we are have a balanced budget now, including the sheriff's contract in there. And going forward, we will do everything we can to continue to begin to protect our citizens. We have had incidences lately of break-ins, car break-ins, all kinds of bad things going on in our city, and it is a hot spot. With all of our visitors coming, we're very concerned about their safety as well. And so we look forward to working with the Sheriff's Department and providing our citizens with some care and some solutions to some of the problems that are beginning to happen. Homelessness is going to be on the increase, and we have absolutely zero services in Depot Bay. We have nowhere to home anyone. We have no way to provide food for anyone. We have no counseling. We have nothing. And so this is going to be a way for us to have a contact and begin providing for services within our community. So I appreciate your looking at our contract and welcome any questions from you.
Okay, I'll start off by saying, Sheriff, that is really encouraging news about recruitment efforts. And it sounds like, kind of a dramatic turnaround. I mean, how many weeks since you had to announce rollback of some services because of being short-staffed? And it sounds like your efforts and your team's efforts have paid off. So.
Yeah, and it hasn't been just since the reduction of services. It's been
Yeah,
ongoing
yeah,
efforts.
right.
The people that we have currently in the academy were already hired. They were part of the probably part of the problem almost, but the outlook is, it seems like it's going to take so long when we initially do these things. But as Lieutenant Berner's outlined for me, that the outlook is actually much brighter than it has been for a long time. And it really does go to his efforts in recruiting some local talent to come work for us that is already trained and certified to do police work. Again, that takes a considerable amount of training time out of the equation.
Now, when April 1st of next year rolls around, and we always like to be optimistic, but at the same time, I know we have to think through worst case scenarios. If you find yourself down in some patrol positions, I mean, do you have any flexibility to delay the start of the contract, or?
We'd have to work with the city on that. They want us to start as quickly as possible,
Sure.
Obviously. And, I believe there's some flexibility with that if we need to.
There's
We've had those
absolutely,
discussions.
yes, there's absolutely flexibility, and the sooner the better, but we've told all of the citizens it's going to take 6 to 8 months, maybe longer. And so it's at the, will of the sheriff to get us up to snuff there.
Thank you.
Could I mention?
Yes, sir.
as well? So that, about the start date, November 1, and that's, get the patrol vehicle, the tree and all that. The desired start date, April 1. But apart from that, I want to draw your attention to section 12 and sub 3. There is provision for termination without cause by either side, 60 days notice. So if things, you're a little concerned, what if things don't work out? I'm sure it just gives both parties an option. There is flexibility in this agreement. I think it's a good agreement. I think it's going to benefit both the city of Depot Bay and Lincoln County very much. I think it's great that the sheriff works with the various communities on these things. It's really, really good for the relations, and I think that's incredibly important. One thing that we worked out in this agreement, to gear up, there's going to be the need to do certain things, and this provides that the funding is provided in advance. Indeed, if this gets terminated early, what will happen is it'll be a proration repayment. But it's to me, it's a secure agreement in that regard. It's good for the county, and it's good for the city of Depot.
Thank you. My fellow commissioners, questions or comments?
Go ahead.
Well, I guess I'll start by trying to get a clarification on the cost. The city is going to provide the funding, but Sheriff, you mentioned indirect costs. Are those included in the cost?
Yeah, those are included in all of our contracts.
Okay, so that money, as you said, will go into the general fund to offset the indirect costs.
Yes.
I certainly support the contract from the aspect of the concerns of the citizens of Depot Bay. But I'd like clarification, as you indicated, when you announced the reduction in services, part of the justification was the contracts with the cities of Walport and Siletz. How does this contract not have that same impact on services? How is it different?
If I understand the question, so when we did the reduction of services, and because we weren't abiding by our agreements with the cities of Walport and Siletz, because those deputies were actually doing work out into the county more than they were doing into their own area. So we had to make sure that we're fulfilling our agreements to do that. And part of that is reducing services in other areas, so that because the demand was so high in other areas. But if you kind of reverse that, if we wouldn't have had those people, let's say we don't have the city of Walport or city of Siletz contract, we'd have taken those completely out of the equation, still had to reduce the services. So what I'm trying to say, it wasn't because of the agreements that we had to reduce services. It was part of the equation to uphold our contracts in those areas, to move people back because they were actually filling the void of other areas. So you don't have them, we would still reduce services. We have them, we need to make sure we're abiding the contract. We're still going to reduce services.
Okay, so let me ask a question a little differently. Are the cities of Siletz and Walport covering the full costs of their deputies?
Yes.
And that, so from that standpoint, the contract with the city of Depot Bay is the same.
Correct, except it's for one, Siletz and Walport are both for two.
Okay, and so what you're saying is you weren't fulfilling the contract with Siletz and Walport.
Yeah, and when we
And
say
so-
Siletz, a little bit different with Siletz than it is Walport, because the Siletz is two things. We have a taxing district in Siletz where the voters approved and paid for $1.31 per thousand for one deputy. And the other agreement we have is with the Confederated Tribe of Siletz Indians. So it's actually not the city of Siletz or even that, it's
The
actually.
Siletz
fire
area.
district. Yes.
Okay. So in order to fulfill the contract, you had to take deputy time to meet that contract, but that will not be the case here, and you've got people coming online. I guess what I'm trying to get at is, are you going to be able to go back to services at a level that is not, well, that was provided prior to the reduction in services?
We don't know yet. We're going to analyze that once we get to full service. I think that's what we really need to do. But as I mentioned in that media release also, we really don't have enough deputies outside the contract areas to provide the services that we've been doing. Our call load has doubled over the years and our staffing has not. So that's where there may have been some misunderstanding, or I don't think it's misunderstanding, it's when people read the media release. Take the contracts out, we were going to reduce services. And we don't have enough people to cover the areas that we do now, based on the call load that's gone up. But it was just compounding because we were seeing staffing levels lower than we had forever because of hiring situations, recruitment, retention through the great resignation that seems to be turning around everywhere. But what the problem, the situation with the contracts is we weren't obligating our agreements in those areas, and we were able to stay above water because we were utilizing those contracts. I need to make the decision to make sure we're fulfilling those agreements. Otherwise, these other agreements wouldn't come around because they'd look and say, well, you're not even fulfilling them in those other areas. And so that was a difficult decision because, for a little bit, you kind of robbed Peter to pay Paul. You're like, okay, well, take these couple of calls, help out, do this in the general consensus that's good for everyone. But then it gets to where it's like, how many hours did we put in there? Did we fulfill our obligation? We knew we weren't. And so we had to make the decision to do that. But in order to do that, then it's like you're left with very few people. How can you accommodate the needs outside those areas? And so it was one of the indications that we needed these services. Again, if you take and just, let's say we never had those contracts, we would have had to reduce services too. Take the contracts out of the equation at full staffing with what we are funded for by the general fund. With all the positions filled, we don't have enough people to adequately address those needs. And that's what I need to analyze once we get to that staffing level again to see, are we able to go back to normal and fulfill and not reduce the services? Now, again, the services that we are reducing are really minimal to what we're providing. And it's also to go because when we are doing everything, responding to every single call for service, then when the priority calls came in, we weren't able to adequately go and respond to those calls. We need to be more proactive in order to reduce crime. So hopefully those calls for service actually goes down, and be prepared to respond to those emergency calls. So it was really an efficient way to utilize the services. We aren't the only agency in the state to be doing that.
I'll support the contract, but I have some concerns about the staffing levels and the reduction in services, but I certainly support the contract for the citizens of Depot Bay.
Commissioner Jacobson.
I have a whole bunch of questions and they're a little random, so I'll just kind of do them one at a time. So just looking at the contract itself. So the contract starts November 1. A deputy would start on or around April 1. And this is a 1-year contract, correct?
Yeah, deputy would actually start before then. We're
Oh,
actually
okay.
gonna, because we need to train and get that person.
Yeah,
trained
yeah.
first.
November 1 is the date, and as far as a 1-year contract, it really isn't. The way I look at this contract is it's ongoing, but it's subject to the 60-day termination.
Yep.
That I talked to you about, but it is ongoing otherwise.
And it is
Okay.
prorated because we're officially starting on November 1st, because we're only in September, so.
Got it. Yeah. My question was really going with, I just want to make sure that, you know, the city of Depot Bay, so this really goes to you, Mayor, that, you know, you're, even though this is new, that you're committed to this more than a year. I mean, you see this as an ongoing thing.
Ongoing,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, one thing I did ask the mayor initially, because I had a little concern about that, you know, we don't want to do this, buy all the equipment.
Yeah,
have somebody in a
exactly.
year,
Yeah.
something happens with the funding, but I asked about the funding and it was my understanding that it's certain percentage
It's like
of your transient
is
room tax is
dedicated.
dedicated to public
To
safety,
public.
and that's been
Oh,
for several
okay.
years.
Yes.
And they have enough adequate funding coming into that annually to cover the position. Plus also again, the startup costs that go with that. So I
Okay,
was.
thank you.
comfortable in that.
Yeah, okay. All right, my next question is, and I was trying to write this down, Sheriff, and I don't think I scribbled fast enough, but you said you have someone graduating Friday, someone graduating in October, someone graduating, I think you said in December and February, maybe?
November and December.
Okay.
Basically every month starting Friday. And then.
Got it.
And then for the next 4 that are currently in there, the current 4 that are in there, and then we have somebody leaving in October, that'll be February, that she comes out.
Leaving what in October? Oh, leaving for training in October. Okay, all right. So I guess my question on that is, for the people coming out of training on Friday, October, November, and December, how long until they're actually ready after they
So
come
they're in
out?
various stages. 4 to 6 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah, because they had a lot of their training before they went to the academy because of the delays of getting into the academy. So, I mean, for the Douglas graduating on Friday, how long has he been employed?
He started, I think, in February of this year. He's going to phase 4. Each phase is about 4 weeks. And you'll get 5 phases.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, because otherwise it doesn't pick up on the microphone. for the
Yeah,
record,
thanks.
So if you wouldn't mind.
Carl Bertner, Patrol Lieutenant Sheriff's Office.
We can get you a chair.
That's okay. I'm fine. 4 to 6 weeks. Most of our recruits finished a majority of their training, the field training program, and they just have to come back, get refreshed, and apply their skills.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So with the people graduating Friday, October, December, November, all of them should be, you know, ready or on their own or whatever by April. And I guess where I'm going with that is that, you know, I certainly, as Commissioner Hunt said, want to support the city of Depot Bay, but I kind of have a hard time swallowing taking on another contract when we're still not back up to the service that we had. But it sounds like these people will be ready to go here, you know, relatively soon, and we should be there on or about April 1. So although I'm a little confused because in your comment to Commissioner Hunt, you kind of said that those services may not come back to normal.
Yeah, that's one thing I talked about in the media is the fact that we need to analyze when we get back to, you know, the services, because it's been a while since we've been there. If we're able to, I guess, analyzing more to, is it a good practice to go back to taking every call for service and not being proactive in other areas that we're doing if we're actually accomplishing more by doing that? If there are other ways to accomplish some of these calls by maybe bringing in non-certified personnel, maybe additional community services deputies to fulfill some of these. A lot of cities are doing that at a reduction of a cost to jurisdictions and a significant reduction of training time that goes into that. Because a lot of these calls can be handled by non-certified personnel. We really want to, again, be efficient and utilize our certified personnel to those emergency situations that require the most prompt, trained, immediate attention for people. So I know a lot of areas are for the list of reductions that we did, are utilizing other resources to do that. And that's one thing we need to analyze it. Do the citizens demand, and do we have the ability to bring back the services fully, by certified deputies, or are there other ways to accomplish that?
So really what you're talking about is efficiency.
Yeah.
Like what's the most efficient way to cover the calls coming in? I mean, I think this is a little bit, I'm getting in the weeds, sorry, Kathy, but I think I'm certainly supportive of having, somebody, and I think an external party or whoever look at, what that efficiency would be. And, is there cost savings involved to bring in more community service deputies or whatever? What's the best way to kind of meet that demand? I certainly would be supportive of looking at that and realizing that maybe the way we've always done it isn't the right way to do it anymore. I mean, things change.
Again,
Yeah.
having these contracts though actually is a benefit to trying to get back to full service everywhere.
Yeah.
Again, it's a win-win for the city and the county, because when somebody is in Depot Bay for their 40 hours, a deputy that would have normally responded to calls in that area doesn't have to. That person, and if we don't have that contract, then someone else is actually having to respond to Depot Bay for that call. Again, it's not like a service we're trying to provide that isn't already being provided. This is really enhanced services to really address a need there in Depot Bay, like we do in the other areas. Again, if you look at our annual reports, if you go back a few years, one of the things I brought to the city council, we show that in our Siletz district and our city of Walport, our response time to emergency calls is significantly lower than anywhere else in the county. That's because we have enhanced enforcement there. But it also, if we don't have that, the response time to everywhere in the county goes up. Again, this is a win-win. If you ever talk to City of Walport and the city council down there, city manager, it's a lot of times it's a back of that. Yachats will say that the contract in Walport is hurting them, and the city of Walport will say that the contract in Walport is benefiting Yachats. It goes back and forth all the time. What I get out of that is it may be, but it's a win-win for both areas.
That was one of my other questions, but you answered that. And I guess the last question I had, you had talked about, increased call load. And I guess my question is that, looking at the call load that comes out of Depot Bay, is this contract appropriate for meeting the demand of the call load that's happening there?
That's a good question. I know the fact the city even asked, contracting, and I'm going to go back in history now, because the last contract up in the city of Depot Bay was myself back in 1994. So I'm going to relate to some experiences back there when obviously call load was significantly different. But back then, a similar situation was happening where the city of Depot Bay was experiencing a lot of crime, a lot of localized situations that were happening. And even though I came in and was just one person, you're able to work cases differently than you are in other areas of the county because you have more time. And so you can take those cases and work them again, just differently and thoroughly than we can in other areas. A lot of our other, quite frankly, unless something happens, we're unable to adequately investigate a lot of our situations, but in the contract areas we can. So what I did in the 2 years that I was there is significantly lowered it with just having one person. Now, it also doesn't allow you to cover a lot of the hours, and that was one of the discussions that came up with the city council. Some of the city councilors wanted hours in the evening, some of the want daytime, with just one person. That's difficult to do. In Siletz and Walport areas, we have one day and one night. So we're able to randomly cover that, over the time. This is going to be one person. We're going to talk about the hours if this goes through, and maybe we have to have a hybrid. Maybe we have a noon to midnight where we cover some. It's a little more difficult to cover those hours. So ultimately, two is it's beneficial, but one is better than none. And I think the city wants to see how one works out.
Yeah,
and
I understand.
There's already been discussion about an addition.
Okay. Yeah, but I understand the desire to see how it goes first before making larger commitments. Okay, that's all.
Answer for
No, thank you. That's I'm like I said, I do have concerns about us currently having reduced service in the unincorporated areas and then taking on this other contract. But I'm supportive of it. I understand that this does give us an additional person that we normally would not have. And that there is, some spillover effect that kind of benefits everybody in that. So.
Well, I am supportive of the contract as well. I appreciate this presentation and discussion. I think we've had a chance to vet a lot of issues. So do we have consent to bring this back as a decision action item next week?
Yep, believe we do.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, commissioner reports. I'm going to pass this week. Anything from, okay,
Yeah, I do have a report to give. I actually gave this at the city of Newport last night at their work session and realized I hadn't given it here. So I thought I would do that, but I have been working with our county manager and while not completely out the door and done yet, like I said, I did talk to the city of Newport last night about this. We are standing up a childcare grant program for new childcare providers starting a business in Lincoln County or existing ones that are looking at expanding their childcare business to create more slots for kids age 0 to 5. We are going to be using ARPA or Rescue Plan Act money to do that. And so we're looking at providing grants of, this is all tentative at the moment, but up to $15,000 per new business or per an existing business to create those slots. Possibly doing it internally or possibly working with some type of community partner to do that work for us. And the whole point here is obviously to get more childcare providers in the community. This would cover actual expenses they have, such as putting in sprinkler systems or meeting other code that's required for childcare facilities. And so last night I met with the city of Newport City Council during their work session. One of the topics was childcare. And while they have a different source of funding they may use, there was unanimous support for them to somehow try to join our efforts and take the money that we're going to provide and try to stretch that a little further in the city of Newport. So they still have to kind of work out details of what they're doing, but it looks like we will have a partner there. And the city of Lincoln City already has a program that they are standing up, a different source of funds, not ARPA, but there'll be an opportunity to kind of work with them as well on that. So excited to hopefully in the next 4 to 5 weeks actually have this out the door. I know there's actually a few businesses trying to start up right now that could use this resource.
wonderful. Wonderful news. Good work.
Yes.
We don't have any members of the general public in the audience, county team members, of course. Do we have anybody on the Zoom who wishes to offer public comment? If so, please use the raise your hand function.
For the record, the staff could make.
They could.
They could,
That's true.
yes.
They desire.
Yes, of course. They have the same right as any other member of the public. Do we have any raised hands?
Well, we do not, Chair.
And I didn't have a chance to ask you before the meeting, do we have any smart sheet input since the last meeting?
No written inputs.
All right, then we are at the point of adjournment. We'll meet twice as per usual next week, Monday and Wednesday, both at 10 a.m. Monday for our office staff meeting and Wednesday, the 14th for the Board of Commissioners meeting, live in person and also on Zoom. Until then, we're adjourned. Thank you.